Good morning, Bucknutters. Welcome to the Bucknuts Morning 5 here on Friday, August 12th, 2022. I am Dave Biddle. I'm very happy to be joined by Jonah Booker for his usual Friday visit. Let's get into a lot of stuff on this show, Jay Book. Let's start with the defense. Let's start with the linebackers. Everybody wants to know about the linebackers. Jim Knowles said earlier this week that Tommy Eichenberg and Steel Chambers have solidified things at linebacker. We were out there at practice yesterday. You can see that they took all of the first-team reps. Second-team reps, mostly Chip Trayanum and Taraja Mitchell, although Cody Simon was mixing in there with the second team at times as well. CJ Hicks with the second team. So those might be your top six linebackers. We'll start with that. Your thoughts on the linebacking situation?
Yeah, it's impressive that they're able to go ahead and get that first unit solidified. I thought you may have had a situation going into camp that some of those other guys may have pushed Tommy or Steele, but it looks like those guys have handled the position well and they're going to run with it. I'm actually really surprised that Chip has been able to really jump in and pick up the linebacker position as fast as he was able to do coming from Arizona State. And it looks like Chip has jumped some of those guys that's been in the program for some time there. So overall, you have to feel really good about the linebacker depth. I know Jim Knowles came onto the Big Ten Network yesterday from their tour talking about the defense, and he said that when it comes to the linebacker position, he's not going to be rotating a lot of guys. I thought that was very curious. Last year, we saw kind of a hockey line change where half the team will run off the field and another half will come in there. And Jim said basically his philosophy is when it comes to the linebackers in the secondary, those guys need to be playing on the field so that they can get in some type of game rhythm. And then you may have a third or fourth guy to spell those guys a little later on just to give them a blow. But as far as a rotation, it's going to be a very limited rotation when it comes to the linebackers this season. So if that's the case, the pressure is going to be on Tommy to really step up and be the Tommy Eichenberg that a lot of people believe that he can be, which is, in my mind, if you're going to start at Ohio State, you need to be playing at an all Big Ten type of caliber at the linebacker position.
Yeah, no doubt about it. And we'll see. I think I like what I'm hearing out of Tommy and Steele. I like the depth there. But we'll see. I mean, I really think last year I might have been as guilty as anybody, blaming the players at times. I think maybe this is just selective I don't know, Buckeye-ism, but I think it was mostly the scheme last year defensively. We'll find out this year. We'll find out. Just like in 2018, I don't think it was really on the players as much as it was. I think just the scheme that year was messed up. And then Schiano was a little out of sorts. Everything that happened at Tennessee, with him getting screwed over, they brought in Grinch. Because Schiano did a good job in 2016 and 2017. Yep. It was just 2018 he wasn't good. And then Hafley comes in. We know what happened. I think they're going to be really good this year. All right.
I think – Go ahead. And I was going to say, I think Coach Knowles is going to give those guys the opportunity to thrive. And the reason I say that is because his comments on the Big Ten Network were kind of eye-opening to me, where he said this isn't going to be a defense compared to last year, where basically saying last year when they lined up, that's what you're going to get. Now with this defense, they're going to line up in something to tease the offense, and what you see may not be what you're going to get. So I think just being able to mix that in, kind of disguise what the linebackers are going to do. And it's not to say, hey, if they're lined up here, that's where they're going to go. They could be dropping, they could be coming, they could be shifting, they could be twisting. And in that case, then I think that's really going to help the linebackers to play at a high level.
I can't wait to see it. You're absolutely right. That's the main points of a Jim Knowles defense. I mean, there's a lot of things that go into it. You want to, create pressure. But I love like the kind of the main points of emphasis. If you really want to boil it down, confuse the opposing quarterback, make him uncomfortable, right. Confuse the opposing offensive coordinator. As you said, show one thing, do another. They never know what's coming. I absolutely love it. Night and day from last year where defensive ends are crashing every play against Oregon, and then Oregon's like, okay, we'll just run the same play for, thank you very much. Okay, let's get in. We'll get into the defensive backs in a moment, but I want to talk about the defensive line. Now, they were rolling. We got to watch all of practice yesterday, which was awesome. And so we got a better feel yesterday, and you can kind of tell the pecking order a little bit. But I will caution everybody, especially a D tackle. I mean, they're rolling so many guys. Defensive end, it's pretty clear to me. We've been talking about this all offseason. Now it's come to fruition that there's really like three starters for two spots, and those guys are going to play a lot. We're talking about the two sophomores and JT Tumolo and Jack Sawyer, and then Zach Harrison. Those three guys are going to play. Basically, they're all starters. And then we'll see after that, you got Javonte Jean-Baptiste, you got Tyler Friday, you got, Caden Curry, all those guys in the mix there. But it's pretty clear to me that the top three defensive ends are etched in stone. And then at D tackle, I was expecting to see more of Tyleik Williams. I know you were with the first team defense. He was mostly running with the twos. He might have rotated in there a couple times with the ones, but looked like to me like Teron Vincent, Jerron Cage, and Mike Hall were the three getting the most reps with the ones. Again, I would really cautious to not to look too much into this. I think all those guys are going to play. Ty Hamilton was out there with the twos a lot. Hero Canoe mostly with the threes, would rotate with the twos. If you're a Tyleik Williams fan like me, you're wondering why the hell is he running with the twos? I think he's going to play basically starter snaps anyway. We'll see what happens. Your thoughts on the D-line, Jay Book?
Yeah, I'm very surprised running with the twos there for so long. We had talked about it in camp, and we thought it was going to be a situation to where maybe they're just starting him off at the beginning of camp and kind of have him progress towards the ones. And going into the offseason, Dave, I mean, Tyleik Williams, I thought he had a tremendous year. It's well documented that they thought that he wasn't in the best condition. And coming out of the winter condition and summer camps, he was getting a lot of praise about his conditioning. So it's something a little funky going on there that Tyleik, a guy who has the potential to be a first-team All-American, I look at Tyleik with his ceiling as being a potential first-rounder if he can really turn on that motor. And I think the biggest thing for them, Ryan Day said when it came to Tyleik, is he needs to buy in to being able to stop the run. Everyone can see what he can do getting after the quarterback, but they're making a huge emphasis on being able to stop the run. Mike Hall, what a surprise. I mean, Mike Hall getting those first team reps up there and just being able to get in the mix, that's a great sign for his trajectory. And just being able to provide that depth from Mike Hall is tremendous. The defensive ends, I think you're good there, as you mentioned. Coach Knowles said 8 to 10 guys. I'm very curious about what an 8 to 10 man defensive line rotation is going to look like. Now, if those guys can come in there and make things happen with limited snaps, I'm all for it. I think it's critical if you're a defensive line to just keep coming after those guys in waves. Just keep rotating. And if you're not getting any type of drop off from the second or the third guys that are coming in there, by all means, keep rotating them. But you have to really love what you're hearing about the defensive line. I know the offensive line, they are getting battle tested day in and day out in practice, and I'm not sure they're going to face a better defensive line all season alone. Maybe in the playoffs if they go against a Clemson D-line that's going to be nasty, or Georgia, Alabama. But other than that, this offensive line are going against arguably the best unit in all of college football.
So the Buckeyes are stacked with depth on the D-line, as we all know. Whatever you think about linebacker, whether you're high on the linebackers, you're skeptical about the linebackers, they've got a ton of depth at linebacker. They've got 9 scholarship linebackers, so a ton of depth in the front 7. Then there's corner, where not a lot of depth, my friend. I mean, they entered camp with only 6 scholarship corners. Now you got Jordan Hancock's banged up, Ryan Turner's banged up. Then they had Jansen Dunn out there doing a little bit, a hybrid, safety corner. He missed practice yesterday. Cam Brown's on a pitch count. Here's the good news. None of those injuries are serious. We heard that from sources. We broke that on Bucknuts a couple nights ago. I asked Coach Day about it after practice yesterday. I even had the fortune. I don't even know if I told you this. I walked in to practice yesterday as I was walking through the WAC. I'm walking next to Jordan Hancock as I come in. So I couldn't help but I asked him, how you feeling, man? And he goes, I feel fine. I'll be good to go. I said, okay, good to hear that. And then a trainer was asking Ryan Turner, who was right next to me as well, like, hey, how you feeling, Ryan? And Ryan's like, feel much better night and day. My midsection feels good. I can run full speed now. So great news. Jordan Hancock's a guy that is on the rise. They need depth. Ryan Turner, all those guys, Cam Brown. So not what you want to hear when you have 6 scholarship corners that half of them are banged up, but none of them are serious. None of the injuries are serious. Your thoughts on the situation at corner? Are you concerned? Where are you at on that?
Yeah, I will first say, wow, when it comes to the injuries. Not necessarily a bad thing, but this team is going into the season right now. And if things stand where they are, as healthy as they ever been, and as you mentioned, these aren't really serious injuries. They're taking precautions to make sure that those guys are going to be ready for the Notre Dame game. And it's great news that you're breaking about Jordan Hancock, that he's going to be fine. I think it's critical that we have him ready to go for the Notre Dame game. I know the injury, he sustained, it can be a lingering injury if they're not careful. So it's critical that he takes his time, gets back in there. We know what Jordan Hancock can do as far as being one of the top level guys. It's going to be a matter of just being on the field, staying healthy, and really showing that he can play at that high level once the live games start. Cam Brown has had an injury history previously to this, so I think it's smart that they're taking their time with him, putting him on the pitch count. But I love the fact that they have some of those guys repping who's, kind of those nickel safeties like a Martinez, and as you mentioned, the other safety, and then Tanner McAllister's getting in there and getting the little reps at corner. And I think that's more of a situation to where if they get into the season and the injuries are piling up at the corner, at least they have some guys that are able to get their feet wet early on in camp so that they don't have to throw them in the middle of the season and say, hey, go figure it out. At least they're getting those guys reps right now, which I think is incredibly smart. And it's forthright by Jim Knowles and the defensive back coaches to say, hey, get these guys some reps just in case.
I'm still surprised they didn't hit the portal and get a corner. When they lost Legend Cavazos, because I think he could see the writing on the wall that he probably would have played, but not nearly as much as he wanted to. Here's the thing. Right now, I believe, if my numbers are correct, they're 2 under the limit, and that's without Parker Lewis, the kicker from USC. Now, once he becomes eligible, if he becomes eligible, he'll be on scholarship, be on the team, so there'll be 1 under. And maybe that'll open the door for a guy like Xavier Johnson to get a scholarship, a fifth-year senior walk-on wide receiver who every time we're out there is making plays. But, man, I'm still a little, surprised they didn't hit the portal just to find someone. Easier said than done, because it wouldn't have been like a Jonah Jackson situation. I'm not even talking about, Justin Fields or Trey Sermon, where you can basically promise a starting spot. You'd be finding a corner just to add depth. But still, I wish they had more than 6 scholarship corners on this roster.
Yeah, you make a great point, Dave. I know there was a lot of smoke in the offseason about Eli Ricks. Should they take him? Shouldn't they take him? They kind of kicked the tires there and thought that he was a guy that maybe wasn't a fit for the actual program. So that was one guy that they were actually looking at in the portal. But you hit it spot on. I mean, they're 2 under with 3 kickers. You have 1 kicker that had to switch over to the cornerback spot just to provide some depth. And I have to be honest with you, Dave. That shouldn't be happening at a place like at Ohio State. You shouldn't have to have a kicker have to switch over to your cornerback position, especially how important the cornerback position is in today's game, where you're playing against wide open offenses, to where you may be playing 4 of those guys, 5 of those guys at any given moment on a Saturday. So I'm really surprised that they didn't go and try to find somebody else. And I think you hit a good point. I don't know, Dave. That might be a question for Dave next time you guys go in there. It's like, hey, did you guys think about hitting the portal up for corner or what? But yeah, it's a fascinating roster management decision to have 3 kickers, 2 under scholarship, and you knew going into the camp that corner position was potentially a spot that may come back to haunt you later.
Our guy Patrick Murphy was ready to roll with that question yesterday. I had my questions. We talked about it, and we got Coach Day for over 20 minutes, but still we didn't probably get him as long as we wanted to. He had more important things to do than talk to us. But Patrick Murphy had that question in the hopper, but didn't get called on. That question will be coming. I'm sure Coach Day is going to really love us questioning why he doesn't do a better job of hitting the portal, but no, I'm kidding. Go ahead.
I was going to say this: if you guys if you didn't have such a large contingent of beat writers, you may have got all your questions. I like what you said, where NFL scouts or NFL media come over there and say, "Hey, you guys are about double, triple the size of what it is when it comes to NFL beat reporters at Ohio State."
It's crazy. I need to confirm this, but I would bet big money, for me, that's like $5, that we have the largest beat in all of American sports. Ohio State football has the largest beat in all of American sports. I'm not being sarcastic. It's not bravado. to me, it's just a fact. I need to confirm it's a fact. When you think about it, I'm talking about including the New York Yankees, the Los Angeles Lakers, any other college team, like name me a professional sports team that has a bigger beat than Ohio State. You won't be able to find one when you're talking about websites, newspapers, TV, radio, everything. It's crazy. Just another thing I love about Ohio State, though. All right, offensively, let's get into this. So depth on the offensive line was the biggest concern, for Ryan Day leaving spring. I asked him, like, is depth at corner now your biggest concern? He's like, it's in the top three, kind of laughing about it a little bit. Not laughing, but kind of joking a little bit. But, man, I think this depth on the O-line is coming along pretty good. With Josh Fryer coming back, Zen Mahalski is a guy that's really stepped up, and then Enoch Vamahi. We'll see. The other two guys on the two deep are Jacob James at center and Trey LaRue at right guard. Ben Christman was rolling in there a little bit yesterday as well. I think those top 8, I like the top 8. I like the starters a lot. Curious to get your thoughts on the starters. But the depth, I think the depth's coming along fairly well. Your thoughts on the starters, and also especially, how do you feel about the depth, J-Book?
Yeah, pleasantly surprised about some of the guys that are filling out there on the second team. And a lot of those guys, there was a major question mark on if they were even Ohio State material, meaning that will these guys ever play here, or were they transfer candidates because they were going to be buried in the depth chart? So kudos to some of those kids that are on that second team that have fought and clawed and punched and screamed and have worked their way into the two deep there, because they're going to play. I mean, there's going to be a lot of point in the season where Ohio State pulls that offensive line because they're up so big. So those kids are going to get reps out there. So you really have to like that. And just having Fryer back is critical to the depth of the offensive line, especially with his ability to be one of those anchors at the tackle position. And I like what Ryan Day said, where he said, hey, when I'm talking to that second team offensive line, first we want to find the sixth guy, then the
We might have lost J-Book. That was going to be my final question anyway. Hopefully we get J-Book back. But I think you guys heard the answer, the crux of it there. He feels good about the depth. Pleasantly surprised. I would agree with that. It's not exactly where you want it, but I feel a lot better about the depth on the O-line than I do at corner. But high-end talent at corner, so I think that's going to work itself out. And at least they're not, those injuries, as we mentioned, are not serious. So looks like we had a little connection problem there with J-Book there at the end, but really appreciate all of the insights from J-Book. Thank you very much to Jonah, as always on a Friday. Jonah always coming strong. Really appreciate J-Book. And thanks to all of you for tuning into the show. Really appreciate that. If you like the show, like, subscribe, give us a 5-star review. All that stuff really helps. Again, thanks to J-Book. Thanks to all of you. Hope everyone has a great day and a great weekend.